All right, hello and welcome to a paper test here. I haven't done one of these in a while and I felt like doing some colored work, which feels like I haven't done that in a while, just with some traditional dye-based inks and maybe some colored pencil applications. So let's get right into it. Okay, so this is the Hamilco cover stock, semi-gloss, 80 pound, okay? And it's readily available on Amazon. And I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone in the application of just some simple techniques, kind of back to the basic type stuff. But also let's try it all on this paper and see how it reacts. So let's try a couple different methods of coloring here. Again, just going really back to the basics here. I've been using the vinyl holographic printable sticker paper, which is not an advanced technique by any means. It's really basic in terms of all of the different processes and applications, but it looks very advanced from the end result. But let's just go back and, utilize some, some scenic stamping types of applications in a methodology that I think people kind of associate more with kind of a beginning technique, stamping things out and just coloring it in. Hello, Jelaine and Kay. Good to see you. How are you both today? All right, so I'm going to use a StazOn black here for my compositions. Let's do the same composition twice, but let's do them in a couple different methods. Maybe I'll use dye-based inks on both. Maybe I'll just use dye-based inks to color on one and colored pencil on the other. Let's just go really, pretty far back with some basics here, okay? All right, so let's see here. Trying to think if I want to go landscape or portrait here. Let me see something here. Okay, so we'll base it around Christmas was coming up, so let's go with a kind of wintry type of scene. Hello, Debbie. Hamilco cover semi-gloss. It's right in the description, Debbie. But there are a couple different types. One is a semi-gloss and one is a gloss. I'm just going to be using the semi-gloss here. All right. Well, maybe we'll do one of these, landscape, and we'll do one of them, portrait. Okay, so that, after doing those 8 pieces in my last 3 videos, I think it was, let's really try to mix this up. This StazOn sure does surprise me just in terms of how dark it is, okay? I always thought my Marvy Black would be darker than a solvent ink, but I don't know. This might be a few percentage points darker than the Marvy Black. All right. But I don't know. You guys can tell me. You might have this one already, Debbie. This cardstock's on like readily available on Amazon, Amazon Canada. I don't know about internationally, but it seems cheap and readily available, which is always good for us, right? It's good for me because I'm always trying to source these different things, and people are, I don't know, there's stampers all over the place, all over the world, and I don't know, I really want to utilize those types of techniques whenever we can, that everyone has access to the supplies. So this one should be a good one. And once again, I thank Nancy from the Nancy Stamps channel for sending me over some samples right here. Yeah, I told her, just put it in a little bit of a envelope. Send me a couple scraps. But she didn't. She sent it to me in like an amazing envelope and everything like this. Look at this foil. Nancy Stamps has the Foiling Snobs Club, if anyone doesn't know, on Facebook, and that's a very active group. And check out the Nancy Stamps channel as well. So I was really happy when I was curious about this semi-gloss paper, because that's what I was using on those monster maps. And, so a lot of people, I was suggesting a semi-gloss for a lot of different applications, because a semi-gloss can be really great in that you get really great impressions from it because it has that coating on there, but it's not so coated typically where you can't use, your colored pencils on it or things like chalks and pastels. So, hello, Don. Yeah, but you get the best of both worlds, kind of. Okay, now, a glossy is going to get you a glossy finish on it, and it's going to look even more saturated, but glossy cardstocks, they're really not good for things like soft media, like colored pencils, all right? It just doesn't have the tooth for it. You can get a little bit of a layer if you have a soft enough colored pencil, but it's obviously not ideal. That's why they have textured papers for things like pastels and colored pencils, etc. But if you can have a little bit of both in between, it's a pretty good combination for us stampers with the typical media that we utilize, right? So, that being said, let's test this out and see if this one, I don't know, let's see how this one works. Stamping things out, we can't really tell. You can stamp out a composition on just about anything, and it's going to look pretty good. Naturally textured papers, you're not going to get quite as complete an image, because you're going to have grooves in there like a linen or something like that. But those have their own kind of special qualities too, those really textured papers. I don't use things like I don't know, watercolors and things like that. I don't know, I'm not a watercolorist. I should try it out sometime because I love the look. But those types of papers, I don't know. I just haven't gotten around to testing those ones out. But I do like the look. There's a certain type of spirit to those types of papers that's really cool. All right, so adding in these additional fences to carry this idea out to the side, all right? And again, portrait and landscape right here. I love cardstocks too, Debbie. All types. I don't know, has anyone ever stamped on linens before? There's one person that stamps on really highly textured papers all the time in the Stampscapes Facebook group, and I love those pieces. Some of them almost look more like paintings to me, with the finish that you can get from those types of textured papers, because it looks like it almost looks like a canvas or something that they're, from the end result, from the texturing. But I haven't tried that before. I don't know, maybe I have. Maybe I've tried it on like linen envelopes. Everyone used to stamp on envelopes back in the early days. Even if you weren't a mail artisan, MAIL, that's a lot of the stamping that was done back in the day. Back in like the 80s especially, 80s and early 90s, it was a lot of mail artisans stamping on envelopes. So you'd see, like in a rubber stamp magazine, it was just as common to see an envelope over it, like a card. So, envelopes typically, there's a lot of envelopes that had a lot of texture to them. There weren't cardstock envelopes or something like that, unless someone was making their own envelopes at the time, and people did. But you know, more often than not, they were just using just store-bought envelopes. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp these out in black. I mean, if I wanted to take my time, I would stamp these trees in a green or something like that, but I just really want to test the paper in this video when it comes to the color applications, all right? Tree cluster small, just using smaller bits in those background hills to represent smaller, more distant, I don't know, whatever, trees imagery. Look at this, you can even use just a 1/4 inch off the top of this one right there to represent that, you know, way distant tree in there. So same tree used in 4 different amounts, areas, and I didn't even use the whole thing in this one. I could put it like right behind the fence or something like that, but let's leave it at that. Because I'm going to color this with dye-based inks, K, and I don't want to wait for it to dry. So, the great equalizer, right? And plus, one other thing about StazOn. A lot of people have StazOn, but not a lot of people have the same brand of like dye-based ink that they're using. So if we're going to do a test here and utilize something where, I don't know, everyone around the world has access to it, you know, I wouldn't use like a Marvy or something like that, because it might not be indicative of the results that someone might get in, I don't know, whatever, South Africa or so, you know what I mean? Something like that. But solvent inks, StazOn, I don't know, it seems like everyone has one of those pads in their, I don't know, supply list. Okay, so let's see. Pebbles, right? All right, texturing. Does anyone watching not have a StazOn pad or a solvent ink black pad? I'm just curious. I don't know. I would say I would be one of those that didn't. Okay, now I've had my StazOn pad for, you know, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. But I didn't use it, though, so I didn't have the re-inker for it, so I don't know. If you ask me this, not too long ago, you know, I would have been one to say, I have it, but I don't use it, so... All right, something like that. Let's get a little bit more texture in here. The more texture you fill in on your layouts, the less kind of blending, you know, I wouldn't say blending, but kind of fine blending you have to do, because you have that texture already kind of inherent in the scenes. So a lot of the, I don't know, the coverage is kind of taken care of. So for me, I like to do that. It makes my life easier. Okay, let's see here. Let's go with a, speaking of that, we have this area up here. Or should I just leave that? Let's leave this area up here for a quote. I was thinking about putting a cloud up there and really filling it in. But let's just leave it, okay? I'm trying to think in terms of, you know, something super, super basic for people. In terms of what someone might do in like a first, you know, go at scenic stamping. You know, I see people do it all the time. You know, here's my first scene that I've done. And I'll do that type of approach on both of these, but I'm going to do a couple little things on them, though, that can take it from maybe someone's first card in appearance to make it look a lot more advanced with a couple, like, really small touches, okay? Okay, so a little bit of foreground here. This one's a road right here, so a lot of times I put things in the, you know, in the foreground down here, but if I put it down here, I'd be saying that the, you know, the road has these big, huge kind of, you know, plants, weeds growing on it, so I'm not going to do that here. It's a little bit of a canopy over the top like this, and creating a bit of a kind of a vignette right here. See, it's like heavier in the right and left corners, okay? Let's see. Hello, Annie. Debbie, what's your darkest black, do you suppose? Let's see, Verna doesn't have a stays on, huh? Well, it was you and I both, Verna. But I beat you to it here by a few months. Actually, like I said, this one's like really old. It's like 20 years old, but I just bought a re-inker for it not too long ago. And I only kind of recently started using it. And again, for me, it was, I didn't really feel like cleaning my stamps with a, you know, having to use a stays on cleaner, but I'm finding that just water takes it right off my stamps. And I'm not being really vigilant about, you know, cleaning these right after I use them too. I'm going back 2 weeks later and just damping, you know, a paper towel and just rubbing it on there, and it comes off. It probably would come off easier if I cleaned it immediately after, but you know, who wants to clean, right? Okay, so we have these two pieces right here, and let's do one in kind of a wintry tone, and let's do one in kind of more spring-like types of finishes, okay? Now, like I said, I'm not taking my time to, I could have done, you know, this tree branch in multiple tones and things like that. I mean, I still can. I could stamp it in green or something like that and do a multi-layer type of thing in here. Let's do that later, actually. Let me kind of give like a real kind of basic application down here of media, and that'll be kind of our example of a real kind of a beginner look, and then I'll add in those little touches that can kind of push it in the direction of, you know, like advanced stamping, and it's not going to be like these big, huge kind of techniques that take a lot of practice or anything like that. And I hope people can see that when doing this. You know, a lot of times people think, okay, yeah, I can see it's going to take lots and lots and lots of practice, and it's not. It's not about practice. It's about process and technique in order to get, you know, certain types of results. When we teach people how to do these and make and takes, there's not a lot of difference between, I don't know, their first card that they've done and my 10,000th card, if it's in that same process right there. Yeah, you know, if I'm doing a monster map or something like that, you know, that's 11 by 17 and I'm just completely winging it, the compositional part of it, you know, is going to be, you know, I'll definitely have an advantage over them doing something like that. But, you know, if they're following along, just doing the same type of thing as I am, it's going to come out the same. Okay, so let's do this right here. Okay, so this is going to be kind of like, you know, like the first snow of the year type of thing. So this is a snowy type of top right here, but I'm going to put in some greens in here, but maybe there will be a little bit of a patchy type of snow type of thing in here. Like, you know, there was a little snowfall or something like that, and it, you know, kind of melted off by the afternoon type of thing. We'll give it that type of look in here. And that's some of my favorite types of things. You know, it's kind of more of that first snowfall type of look than just, Winter Wonderland, which looks good too. But if I'm going for kind of multiple tones, some greens and some blues, then I would typically do something like this. Okay, so this first one right here will be just colored pencils, okay? All right, so anyways, okay, so here's one of the things about colored pencils. A lot of times when I was mentioning this to someone I was teaching kind of over email, but I was showing them that a lot of times when people think about grass, okay, they're looking at their pencils or their inks and they're thinking, okay, which one of these is a grass green or something like that, okay? But, if you look at any type of photo, and I really suggest that people kind of reference photographs too, not that we're trying to do a photographic process or photorealism, but you can see kind of any area in terms of distance. There's multiple shades of things in there. There's warm greens, cooler greens, there's shadows, etc. in there. And that's usually with any type of object, like, I don't know, let's see, something colored object. Here's this object right here, and here's the same color plastic, right? This is all the same uniform plastic over the whole thing. But this blue here, if we think about this blue, it's going to be like this color blue, right? Let me see, here, okay? So people would reach for that color blue, and, that if they're first starting out and they're not thinking about shadows, they're not thinking about this is this color right here because of the lighting. Even in this handle right here, which is the exact same color. See, that's that color like that, but now it looks much darker like that. So it's always a good idea to just grab out your pencils like this, and I line them up from light to dark, like so. All right. Here's some blue tones like this. I don't really have dark tones in here, but it goes something like this. You're just I can't even tell which one's lighter than the other. If you can't tell, then it doesn't matter which one comes before which. They're all they're about the same value. But I can tell like something like this is quite a bit darker, okay? And you just line them up like this, and that's, there's other ways you can do this, but this is like a really simple process right here, okay? So you just start coloring in using your lightest tones like this, and you also kind of apply it in a light application. So now this one's going to get a little bit bluish too, okay? So we're not just going completely with greens here, but we're just applying it down like this. And again, this is just like a really kind of beginner kind of approach to this, okay? Now this road in here, here's where I always recommend kind of doing a little bit of overlapping and kind of merging of tones. So let's say that this covered bridge is going to be like a natural wood look. Then I am putting some of that green up into it, because what you'd have is lighting kind of reflecting off of a green thing and reflecting on those objects around it. And then you get a little bit more of this kind of color harmony within the piece like that. Okay, it doesn't mean that, you're going to have this green brown right here, but you have this real kind of base layer. It's just a little tinge of that green going up into that. This is going to be this kind of brown dirt road right here, but you have some of this green coming into it, okay? And then vice versa, I'll have some of this brown going into the green. All right? Okay, so let's see. Debbie said she likes the Gina K. Yeah, did I ask you, Debbie, or did I just think about asking you what do you think was the darkest black that you have there? And who joined in here? Hello, Beth. I keep a dish with a dish's scrubber pad. I love that idea, Candy. I have something, or did I have it? I had a scrubber pad somewhere. It was it's one of these. Look at this thing right here. It's the Stampendous. You can't even read it anymore because it's broken right here. Stampendous rubber scrubber. keep this end dry. What does that mean? Keep this end dry. So you're supposed to wet it over here? I've always just wet the entire center. I don't know. I never, oh, so you're supposed to scrub it right here and go like this. So it's going wet and it's going dry. I never do that. Maybe I should. Okay, so anyways, here comes the blue. Okay, no, here's the thing, okay? Now, I'm not going to do what everyone does, okay? Everyone usually kind of colors everything uniformly. So if this is supposed to represent water in here, okay, they color in everything uniformly. But here's my, the things that I'm always mentioning about lighting. What we're going to do, like on this road right here, you're going to leave a little bit of a light area somewhere. You can leave it down here, up here. I like to leave it a little bit up here, like, we're drawn to the light type of thing. But this, this rooftop here, leave some of it a little bit lighter. In this grassy area, leave some of it a little bit lighter. More so when we get to the mid-tone tones, okay? You can color everything in with the lightest of colors. I like to leave a little bit of white because you can always add in more, but, I don't want to have to do some kind of bleaching technique or something like that if I think, oh, I should have left it a little bit lighter, okay? All right, so this rooftop here, let's say it's, there's still some of that snow up there. That would really be the place that get kind of melted off first, but it, what can I say? It's already inherent in the rooftop itself, so the rooftop is going to have some snow on it, okay? All right, so down here in the road, remember, kind of a little bit of merging of some of the colors from the other zones. So we have the water down here. I'm putting a little bit of this bluish tinge on the road right here, okay? It's going to be really kind of weird for a lot of people. All right, this is what I'm not used to. I'm not used to doing these vast areas, like this whole area in the sky and coloring it in. I usually don't do that with colored pencils. It's usually doing it with dye-based inks, but let's just keep it really simple for those that are doing this process right here. Okay, now some people, they frame their scenes off, like I mentioned, in a vignette fashion, making the four corners darker, to frame everything off and to really contain our compositions, okay? Vignettes don't have to go all the way to black, okay? They could, but if you have a real pastel-ish looking scene, let's say if I don't get too much darker than this, I might not want to go to black like that. So a vignette can just be darker corners, but you kind of gauge how dark you go depending on kind of what range you move all of your tones through. So I'll go pretty dark on this one though. Let's see here. I'm tempting Verna with the stays on, huh? Is that what you were referring to, Verna? I don't know. That stays on is pretty dark, Verna, so it's pretty good. The Gina K is as dark as stays on. Good, good. What type of black is that though? Is that a solvent based, or is it pigment, or is it dye? Or does it say? Sometimes they don't say. Like most pigment pads, they don't say this is an oil-based product, which they really should, so that people know about. I couldn't even tell, and I asked one manufacturer one time that has their pads made by someone else. What was a hybrid pad? And they couldn't even tell me, because maybe that company, the manufacturer for those pads, doesn't tell them, But I mean, we need to know these types of things, because we're working with, alcohol inks these days. We're working with water-based inks. We're working with pigment inks that are surface-based. Dye-based inks work by staining the surface. Okay, so see this right here? See this little halo of kind of light coming out of there? And again, I'm just doing this with my lightest tone right here, but you see this little glow down here? And this glow up here, and there's a little glow on the rooftop like that. That's your lighting right there, okay? So I'm coloring, but I'm also retaining some of those lighter areas. So instead of just color, people think lighting is hard. Okay, it might be kind of a weird concept because we're used to coloring in entire areas. Okay, this is the sky, coloring it in blue. This is the water down here, blue. Okay, but you just retain some areas, so you're coloring and you're lighting at the same time. Let's make it really apparent by going to the brown here, and I'll do the same thing down here. We'll have this illuminated area right in here. Okay, let's see. Debbie, you have the Stampendous stamp cleaner. Is that what you're referring to? Mine is probably, I don't know. Well, you saw it, how, shredded it is. And it's not, I'm not rough on my like stamp cleaners or anything like that. It's so old, that plastic just got so brittle. I don't know, yeah, it just shredded. And it's been like that for a very long time. I think it's been like that for the last at least 15, 20 years. I think it's like a 30-year-old cleaner. And those things, I guess they're just, someone told me when I got it, they said, oh, well, that's just like a paintbrush cleaner, that you get at Home Depot. I don't know, maybe it being pink, maybe it cleans the stamps better or something like that. I don't know. But I've used it quite a bit. I typically don't use it too often, but I use it when I have like 50 stamps that I need to clean that I haven't gotten around to. So I really kind of douse it, with water. Or I might spray in. For me, I like using a little bit of simple green, heavily diluted on that cleaning pad or whatever. And do you see that kind of lighting coming about like that? I'm going a little bit darker again in the corner right here. I'm not going to go darker over here. But I'm also bringing this up into the green here too, okay? But see, okay, now here's these shadows right here on the road. So what you do is you just kind of go in here. Don't make it too, just barely touch your pencil, chalks, pastels, whatever you're doing. Or if you're doing dye-based inks, you can kind of do this very lightly. Or if you're coloring in, maybe not on the stays on, with a alcohol marker, but you can do these different types of tones, with your really light values like this, okay? But again, this one's on stays on, so I wouldn't do it on with the alcohol pens. Although it stays on, I found that I can color it just fine with alcohol pens as long as I allow the stays on maybe to dry. Oh, I don't know. I haven't done a test on it or anything like that, but maybe overnight or something like that. I colored over it, and I don't know. The way that I was coloring it wasn't smearing or streaking any of the colors at all. All right, so here comes the brown down here. But see this, I'm just kind of reiterating those shadows in there a little bit. I'm not a good colored pencil user or experienced like at all. Keep in mind, okay? All right, so here's the covered bridge here. See how this is darker on this side? So I'll apply a little bit of heavier tone over here. And I have darker colors to come too. But, okay, here's my little thing. Let me see if I can transition this reasonably well. I'm going to be going over it with white pigment ink too to really blend things out, so I'm not too concerned at all about, super fine blending. All right. Anyways, coming about. Yeah, this one right here is really rough right here. See, this is like areas like too big to fill in. All right, so let's go to the next tone. This is like a raw umber, okay? A little bit of a kind of a yellowish tinge, I guess. Something like, not camel, but... And remember, these different colors too, colors are going to look different when they're overlapping another hue. Like with colored pencils, you know, we don't really think about them as being transparent or, you know, kind of translucent, but they really are when applied. So one color isn't necessarily going to look like a given color. Like if I put this kind of more neutral green over warm green, this is going to appear, or the combination of the two are going to, you know, create some other type of hue that's a little bit more in between the two, or I don't know, we might even get up to like a layering of 4 or something like that. Okay, but see this right here, so it's, you know, we're leaving some lighter areas in here, okay? Like that. We have some of those background hills right in here, okay? All right. This feels a little bit strange because I'm usually not just doing only colored pencils on anything. So I'm seeing kind of something a little bit new here for me. But I use these in the same fashion that I do with almost every media. Maybe not, you know, acrylic paint pens or something like that, but dye-based inks, alcohol pens, everything. They're just kind of layered from light tones into your darker tones, okay? All right, let's see here. I'm kind of moving away from a little bit of that kind of bluish tinge, you know, where there's little patchy areas on the ground still. Let's put in this little bit of bluish tinge in here, okay? And you can do it still in the areas where you've retained some of the white in there. Okay. So I guess I can go with the blue right over the brown, and it doesn't look like, oh, there's blue right there, but it's kind of creating some sort of combination like that. Yeah, Candy, I like it. I like colored pencils a lot more over this last year, you know, more than since I've started kind of experimenting with them more. And my favorite application of it so far is with, you know, that starry, or just the printable sticker papers. Amazing. It's because this has, you know, there's a real kind of inherent mellow look to colored pencils. And a lot of times what I've done over the years, I've always loved the look of colored pencils, but I usually would go with something that has the potential of greater contrast, which would be layered dye-based inks, all right? But, and then I was often working on glossy cardstock, which is not conducive for colored pencils at all. But the super mellow look of this type of thing, and then if we had like, you know, a starry sky up above, it's like the ultimate kind of textural contrast that I don't know, that I've done before. And I just think that it's just a huge kind of rich surface when you can combine something so kind of extreme like that. And I thought in a reasonably, you know, harmonious way. Although we wouldn't think that it would be that way, but I thought those pieces did look really, I can't even show, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, I already sent, well, I have some of those ones that I did myself here, but If people don't know what I'm talking about, here's one of them. You know, here's the holographic right there with the colored pencils down below right there. So super soft against super kind of rich and, I don't know, expressive of a surface as you can, you know, as we probably use in stamping there. Okay, so this is getting a little bit darker, so I'm going into these kind of the ridges within the design where it's a little bit darker in the design. Like in here, you can see this is just pure snow, right? So I went into them with the colored pencils, and here it is with the road again, except on here I did it in dirt, you know. This one right here, it's like all in snow, so there's that little bit of blue. It's the colored pencil right in there. And there it is again. So see up here, a little bit of color on it, lighting, color, but lighting too. And same thing down here. All right, so just don't color everything in completely uniform, and then you have your lighting like that. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a mystery of where to apply that. See, this little ridge right here is on the design itself, and you're just going into it like this. Let's add a little bit of bluish tinge, like, you know, maybe some little bit of snow is still down there on that, like that. See, there's anywhere where there is kind of a darker, kind of a stippled or textured or shaded area, just go in and just make it a little bit darker like that. And then you can get as dark as you want, okay? So see this area right in here? That's darker, right? So you can just go in there and you just reiterate it with whatever you're coloring with. And it doesn't have to be any mystery. For me, now it's not darker underneath here, but there's these trees, so let's just add a little bit of shadow to them to really anchor them down, like about like so. That's a really light blue right now, but I'm just building it right here. And then let's go to, I'll jump ahead right here just to show you what was going on a little bit faster. And then you can just go in and you can get it with, this is black right here. So hopefully, you know, you can see these kind of forms and visual weight starting to develop. It doesn't develop really fast, but that's what makes the process really easy to do. It's nothing ever kind of, you know, happens like, you know, like calligraphy or something like that, where it's, you know, you have to have like years of practice and touch to it. You just kind of develop everything kind of, you know, with really light tones like that. And then, you know, if I want a shadow to get darker, then I just kind of go a little bit darker accordingly. But you're also working it through, you know, various shades here too, and that makes it a lot easier too. And plus, at the end result, you just get a much richer kind of color scheme, having utilized all those different tones like that. And see, here's brown, but that green underneath that brown is showing through. So it doesn't even look like brown, you know, it's just some combination of it. And you can always just, you know, you can put a little bit down like that and see if you like it. If you don't like it, then it's just, you know, don't go anymore. But things will usually harmonize pretty well if you lay things out. If they look like they blend pretty well on here, they'll blend on the paper just fine. You know, I mean, if I throw in something like, oh, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know if like a, here, like a purple, like if I try to blend these, you know, four together, I don't know if that purple is going to go because it doesn't really, you know, blend kind of visual from a visual sense. But, you know, you can put this purple in with the browns like this, and that harmonizes reasonably well like that. So you can, you know, if you wanted to, you can put in purple with this, right? Because it blends to your eye just fine. You can see how much I use purple. It's like sharp as a needle. All right, I think this one's just about done here. Well, let's see. Here, let's go on. We have a little bit of this brownish tinge. I can use this in the fence maybe. About like so. Okay, now this paper, this Hamilco is taking it pretty well, and it's a semi-gloss, like I said, so it's not going to, I'm not going to be able to build up like extreme layering with colored pencils like this, but it's working pretty good. At some point in time, you kind of reach a little bit of a super saturation when it comes to colored pencils. It kind of builds up and it gets kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but there's so much wax buildup on there, so if I try to apply more of it, it's not applying very well because it's just not coming in contact with like any of the paper at all. I can kind of build it up, I'm finding. I'm kind of using a little bit more of a force with this pencil, and it is getting a little bit darker, so it's not too bad. So again, this is using the semi-gloss paper if you just joined in here, but for colored pencils, I don't know. I think it's a perfectly acceptable surface for that. We'll do dye-based inks on this other one here, and we'll see how that goes with the dye-based inks. The thing I'm curious about with the dye-based inks is the amount of saturation that we can achieve with the inks, how vibrant the tones are, and if they blend, or how well they blend. All right, see these boards right here? I'll go in and I'll kind of vary some of these boards, these wooden boards, these older types of structures. There would be a little bit more of a kind of a difference in, those individual boards. They tend to take on a different color, If it's aged, and they're not painting it all the time or whatever. All right, so that is that. Okay, so one of the things I said I would do on this is let's add on, here. Let me see something back here. I'm going to put in a little bit of a green in the back, kind of going from this. I didn't have that hill back there. Something like this, all right. Okay, so that is just your general coloring, okay? Nothing fancy by any means. Kind of a beginning scene, just stamping it out and coloring it in. I did use a lot of, now I didn't go through all of these tones right here, but just talking about building up your richness like that, okay? All right, so this is what I would do. That's a beginning scene. Stamp and colored pencil coloring, okay? Let's take a cotton ball and some pigment ink. Let's use, okay, I'm gonna use my Brilliance ink because I did lay down a lot of wax on here. So let's see how this goes. If I use the oil-based Hero Hues, it would probably work as well. I might have to spray seal it though, I think. Maybe not though, okay. I'm just gonna use the Brilliance just because, I know it'll dry really fast and it sticks to just about anything, all right? Who had that? C.M. Hawkins, you have the Stampendous Scrubber too. When did you get it? Hello, Cheryl. Thanks for joining in. Both inks and pencils. I'll try it on the next one, Candy. This is my first time using it, so you're seeing kind of, discovering for the first time. Okay, so this is my white pigment ink. The biggest thing is that you don't use too much at any given time, okay? Well, okay, that, not exactly, but like if you have an area where you really want to fill it in, then of course you're going to have more ink on here. But for this look right here, my pad is kind of more medium dry right now. I did re-ink it recently because I was using so much of it on those 8, cards, not this one right here, but the other mirror cards that I just did. But you're going to blot it off quite a bit, okay? That also kind of pushes the ink back in your cotton ball. Go like this a little bit. This is a used cotton ball too, so I can usually get a couple uses out of each cotton ball. and then it just dries and it's just too hard. I don't know, maybe you can store it in a Ziploc bag and, you know, where it doesn't dry out completely. The Brilliance, though, dries pretty fast, though. Okay, but anyways, where we're going to start adding this down is in our lighter areas, okay? And then I transition it into the darker areas, okay? So a little bit of variation right here, okay? So see that right there? How kind of it gives that kind of that light look, lighter look, and it's a different texture too. Do you see me kind of walking that across like that? So I started in my lighter areas, okay? And I don't put it everywhere, like say over here. So see, I'm kind of creeping this over from the lighter area because I'm also getting a feel of how much ink is on here. And I know that if it looks light, by the time I put it around something like that, it's going to be, you know, I'm not going to go like this and it's like dry and then go over here and it's like super wet. So I have a really good feel of it, okay? I like to oscillate my application of this. So I'm going here, let's put a little bit over here, like about like so. And when I say oscillate, you know, I have this kind of area without any pigment ink and I have some width over here. Wow, that something happened to my exposure right there briefly. Okay, so anyways, you go like that. See this bridge over here? I think that bridge looks really great like that, but let's go in here. We're obscuring some of them are really dark, you know, really nice, dark, stays on black right there. But see like that? Doesn't that look nice like that? Doesn't it look like it's sitting in something? So shadows make, our objects make it look like they're sitting in something through the use of dark. But you can also do the same thing. Now that tree right there, I didn't stamp it out really well and it kind of came out a little bit lighter. So being that it came out a little bit lighter, let's make it lighter, kind of a little bit more purposeful looking, and let's put it in a little bit of a kind of a shroud of mist or fog. Maybe that mist is coming off of the water surface or something like that. Okay, see this tree kind of out in the distance like that. Let's knock it down a little bit. So you're getting a lot of variation of that same black pad, but you didn't have to do it. You didn't have to use grays and stuff like that. You just come in after the fact and add as much as you want. And it doesn't have to be, let's say, kind of a more gray tree. Maybe it's a gray or a lighter, you know, impression, as well as a darker one, because I just put it at the base right there. And I hit it a little bit from that side right here. But can you see this kind of, you know, the kind of the character of this piece kind of changing and becoming much richer looking? I think that, you know, the beginning piece looked, you know, very, very basic, but here it looks more texturally complex now. And then we're also developing our lighting like that. Okay, so let's hit it up here in these leaves as well, okay? It's lighter right in here, so I'm hitting these areas and hitting some of these leaves like that. And you get kind of a richer foreground look, and plus some of those leaves look like they're closer and some look like they're farther away. Some are darker, some are lighter like that. So here's the thing, you know, just if you ever start using this, just don't put it over everything, you know. Right here is just a little bit down here, and this, you know, it doesn't matter where you put it. I could have put it over here. I just wouldn't put it over the entire thing. You know, let's put a little bit more like right here. Let's put it on both sides like this. See, like that right there. I just put a little bit right there, and look at how that changed that entire side of that covered bridge by just putting a little bit of that blocking out like that. So it's like, you know, we're always used to kind of coloring, but on here you can kind of see that, you know, you're kind of illuminating and texturizing just with the same tone like this. So you can have darker greens or something like that. Oh, I went a little bit too dark over there or something like that with inks or alcohol inks or whatever. You can always just go into it with this later and just hit it if you want to, and you can push it back in the distance, you can make it lighter. So it's one of those things. It's really kind of a it forgives me a lot of times, with my applications that might look a little bit harsh, or I don't know, whatever. Something that doesn't come out, but I don't even see it as that anymore. Something that didn't come out, because I just see this as part of the process, and it can obscure, enhance, whatever, illuminate, etc., like that. All right, so you get kind of a little bit more of a richer textural and illuminated piece like that. And it's just from this, okay? So that's something that everyone can do. I recommend kind of experimenting around. It doesn't have to be the Brilliance pad. I didn't use the Brilliance for years, because I thought it dried a little bit too fast. So I used, my Clear Snap color box one. Then I switched over to the Hero Hues when people told me that the Hero Hues one was whiter than the color box one. So that one you can kind of add down. You can kind of remove it if you don't like it too. The Brilliance is a little bit more set on the surface, be it like a glossy cardstock or something like this. But those other ones, when you're layering it down on top of something, it gives you a little bit of time. If you don't like it, if you added too much, you can just take a paper towel and just wipe it right off, especially if it's on glossy cardstock. But that being said, you have to spray seal those ones to kind of seal it off. But I spray seal my pieces anyways, so it's a really great thing to use. But anyways, a little bit of an oscillation like that. Now I haven't even used the paint pens on this. Some highlights on here would be really good too. But we won't get into that right now. I just, let's get to the testing of this paper, and let's try the dye-based inks on this one. Okay, so let's just go with some. Here, I'll make it really super easy right here. Okay, so just grab, your. I'm saying grab your thing, if you're doing kind of a stamp along type of thing. Just a range of blue tones going from light to dark. I don't know if I'll get into these ones right here, but let's test out the dye-based inks and the colored pencils together on this one right here. Again, this is still the semi-gloss right here. All right, so this is, let's see right here. Summer Sky. Okay, my Summer Sky right here is a little bit lighter than my Salvia Blue Marvy. These are all dye-based inks though, okay? You can use your Distress, whatever, okay? I would have at least about 3 different tones of blues, that would be my preference when doing dye-based ink applications. I think that 3 colors gives us a really good combination and visual depth with whatever color scheme we're working with. If we're working in violet tones or something like that, let's say we don't have a light violet, medium violet, dark violet, you can always just do blue tones. And if you know your basics of color blends, you can just mix in a pink with all of these tones, and these blues suddenly become violet because you have the pink mixed with all of them. If you don't have 3 different tones of green, but maybe you have, a green color and a few different blues, you can move these all into 3 different shades of green by having this layered into the mix, okay? Now, my road's not going to be green on this one, but let's just do kind of a winter wonderland on this one. In this winter wonderland, that particular tree is an evergreen. Okay. No, it would be leafless at the, but this is rubber stamping. This isn't reality. Okay, so let's see right here. I'm just taking my paper towel, okay? We could find paper towels all over the world like that. Is that, let's see. See, I've got their scrubber 28 years ago. That's about when I got mine. Yeah. That's about when I got mine. And that's probably about when they came out, right? At that time, in 94, I would say that's about the time when the stamp position... Do you have... Sam Hawkins, do you have the stamp positioner too? That little T-square, acrylic T-square from either Stampa Barbara or Stampendous. Okay, so blue right here, okay? I mean, this is a small card. I've been doing like larger cards lately, so that maybe this is a little bit too much on here. Let me mellow that out a little bit like that, okay? So again, going in and retention of some lighter areas, okay? Okay, now what I'm looking for in this tone right here is how it's applying and how the paper seems to be absorbing the ink. And it feels the exact same to me as any other semi-gloss that I've used, okay? The semi-gloss has a much closer feel to a matte cardstock. I mean, you can see this right here. There's not a lot of sheen to it at all. I mean, this is just like copy paper right here, you know, as opposed to like a, gosh, where is my glossy cardstocks? I haven't been using glossy in a while. I don't even have one cut out here. Okay, here we go. So let me just give you the look at this. Okay, this is the same on both sides as far as I can tell, but here's glossy right here, right? And here's this. Okay. It just, if it has a slight satiny look to it, it's barely discernible. So it is coated, but it's much closer to matte, if you haven't used a semi-gloss before. Hello, Lisa Gordon. Good to see you. We're doing some tests on a new brand of paper to me, okay? And it's a semi-gloss paper. And I really wanted to use this one because it's just readily available on Amazon, okay? I know Amazon's taken over the world, but we got to find, you know, I need some, I need a handful of readily accessible types of papers and everything like that, that's easier for people to find. And I've looked in other countries too, okay? So sometimes people are, finding glossy cardstock did not used to be a problem. Like, you know, like Sam Hawkins and I were talking about 28 years ago, everyone used glossy cardstock back then. There were a lot more stores all over the world too, so like stamp stores would often carry a glossy cardstock. You know, they were sourcing it from somewhere. Australia, you know, I have this paste setter one that came out of Indonesia that was really amazing and super glossy. So, you know, but everyone knew about, you know, where to get things like glossy, but glossy cardstocks are typically, I'm switching to the salvia blue now and blending in, but you can see my areas where I've retained some areas of light, right? Like in the sky, road, little area down here. I didn't have too much of a retention over here, but, yeah, you can easily find that stuff, but glossy cardstock is really catering, you know, their target audience is the printing industry. They're not, you know, selling like a lot of reams of it to crafters who, you know, we buy a pack and we're set for, you know, with 250 sheets, we're set for life, right? So that's not their audience like that, okay? So they're selling to printers, people that are making, you know, professional printers who are doing postcards, book covers, movie posters, etc., you know, and doing, you know, printing up, you know, 10,000, you know, whatever, book covers, you know, publishers and everything like that, okay? So sometimes it's hard to find glossy cardstock these days. We can get it here in the US because it's sold right on Amazon, or you can order from, what is that, the paper source, or I don't know, I forget that company, online, okay? But it's not like you can find like a bunch of different brands just readily available everywhere, okay? I'm lucky because I have a Kelly paper that sells mostly to the printing industry, but they also have retail stores, you know, that are just open to public and anyone can go in there. And there's a chain of them out in the West. Not a huge chain, there might be 12, I don't know, 15, 20 stores or something like that. But okay, I'm this super long-winded explanation of when I look at for semi-gloss cardstocks. Okay, I'm finding that there are a decent amount of options coming up in different countries. Okay, and I find that semi-gloss cardstocks are really good in terms of the saturation retention. Okay, I'm on salvia blue, and that's a pretty good salvia blue right there. Okay, it's not as deep and rich as if it would be on glossy cardstock that has a much, or more of a surface retention of ink as opposed to getting soaked into the paper, right? But this isn't too bad. Okay, so like Hamilco, I think it was not only, it was cheap too. Okay, I think they have that in their written description. They're saying that they're cheap, or it's inexpensive, but it seems to be a pretty decent surface as far as I can tell. I don't know. I told someone before too. There's a big difference between one glossy cardstock and another brand. I found that the different brands were really quite different. Okay, but the semi-glosses, to me, if you put all of them that I've used over the last 30 years together, and I was just to use them, besides, there were different thicknesses, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. Okay, which is good because that means they're, reasonably uniform. And I think we could expect something similar, from them. But now remember, this is not the same as like a satin, like photo paper. Okay, this is cardstock. All right. Okay, so this is going on with the blue. This is a really bright blue here. Okay. And it's blending really easy for me. I don't know. What I'm testing for too, this is what I'm looking for as well. How fast does it dry on the surface? I don't want it really drying really super fast because I find it easier to blend if the paper is getting a little bit moist as I apply this. Now it depends where you're at. If I'm in like New Mexico or Arizona out here, this is, it's drying up like 10 times faster, or just any arid area, okay? But for me, I'm in Southern California. It is warm and, it's not super humid or anything like that, but I'm finding like this, see this blending like this? It's working great. I don't know, yeah. It's working just the same as, my Mohawk Everyday Digital, the white coated silk one. All right, so yeah. I think the Hamilco was even on Amazon Canada as well. I don't think it's going to be on Amazon Australia, but there's probably a semi-gloss on there. Okay, let's try the darker blue right here. We're almost done right here, okay? Right here, I'm just going to kind of focus it mostly under the trees if I can. This isn't a great thing to get in that little spot underneath this tree, this little, but you can kind of just dab down. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit it with the colored pencils or something like that. Okay, a little bit more of a vignette on this one, maybe. Now you can use, I'm using a paper towel, but if you're using blending, brushes or something like that, go ahead and use those. But see this right here? Here's my areas of light. We have this area of sky, okay? And if people are first starting off doing these types of things, they're going to think about coloring in this entire sky white or blue, if it's going to be a blue sky, right? And that would be fine, okay, but you wouldn't have that lighting in here anymore, okay? So here's like a rooftop right here. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more tone to that, okay? But it's illuminated right. And the side of this covered bridge is darker. It's darker to begin with when we stamp it out too, but I've darkened it in with ink as well, okay? So that makes it look more three-dimensional like that. And I treat this side differently than this side, okay? So it looks like, you know, we have three different values on three different sides of a structure, okay? All right, we have this slope right here, and that's kind of a different area. I mean, I could have left a little bit light back in here if I wanted to. And this isn't like a formula. It's not like every, you know, individual zone has to have lights and darks in it. It doesn't, but I do keep those lights and darks in it. So I see this little slope as a little bit of a different area than this area in here, okay? So that area has a little bit of light, and there's dark, and it's not like some complex thing. It's just like going like dark through here, okay? You know? And then certainly light on the road like that, okay? All right, let's vary this a little bit too, okay? So that would be my kind of example of kind of a beginning type of scene, you know. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a lot of different blues in there. There's three different blues, but that darkest blue, like right here, it's like barely applied right in here, and it's a lighter version of that blue. It's not like this and like that version right there. I mean, it could be if you wanted to, you know. I mean, you could go darker if you want, like that. But see, I'm adding it in a very light fashion like that. So you just build it up really slowly, and there's a lot of control over it, okay? You just don't go like this into a sopping wet ink pad and then go like that, you know, like in a light area. You know, you kind of always kind of build it out from the outside edge in like that, okay? And that's kind of what I'm doing with the colored pencils too. Someone joined in here. Bugs, did you join in? Hello, Bugs. Hello, Lisa, if I didn't say that. The Hamilco white semi-gloss appears to be sold out on both Amazon and through the Hamilco company website. Forget everything I said about the Hamilco paper on this video. All right, there's a paper thing going on right there. Okay. There's a pulp shortage or something like that. All right, but keep that in mind, though. You know, it's going to come back in inventory at some point in time. But again, it's you know, I don't think this is specific to the Hamilco paper. I just picked that one out because it was everywhere, and now it isn't. Thank you, Annie. Yeah, this is doing just fine for me. But like I said, you know, for me, I haven't felt any difference between the different semi-gloss papers. They seem to be reasonably uniform to me and consistent in terms of the coverage, the surface, the absorption kind of factor. So I really like that of them, you know what I mean? Because I can recommend, okay, just get a semi-gloss. And I feel reasonably confident that it's going to be something that's going to yield the same results that I've had from, I don't know, it's probably been about 4 different brands of semi-gloss papers that I've used over the years. And the semi-gloss papers are often, they go by the names of, or the descriptions of satin. Okay, they call it semi-gloss sometimes, but a lot of times I don't see it termed, you know, titled that on the paper. So it's semi-gloss, satin, dull, and silk, okay? You often see the semi-glosses term that. Okay, I'm going to see if I can hit this with a little bit of a warm tinge. This is your antique linen. It's just, I find it to be a really great color because it's just so kind of aged and dull, but you still get that warmth in here. So I'm going to add a little of that in. And you saw me I wiped it off first because I just wanted to get a little bit. Okay, I wiped off too much, so I'm going to wipe it off again. Like about like so. I'm just going like this. My pad might be Okay, here it comes. Do you see that little warmth? Do you see that tiny bit of warmth? I don't know if you can tell. I mean, I barely see it here. But you see that right there? It's a little bit different than up there. So it's a temperature change within this space right here, okay? So having that little bit of warmth like that, just kind of, I don't know, to me it brings the piece a little bit more alive, but it's really faint. Okay, so if you do it with a really light tone, beige of some sort, doesn't have to be the antique linen. The distress inks are really good though, and a lot of you already have those types of things like that. So there was like, what was that one, that paper one? There's antique linen, there's old paper, I think it was. Old paper's really kind of that same type of value. It's really light. Yes, I am going to do classes. I need to get those rescheduled though. Annie, in fact, I don't know. Is Annie still on here? Annie's doing. We're putting together a class for her when she gets some time going. But yeah, but people, I need to put a notification on my workshops area to notify me if you're interested in classes. Okay, so that is a little bit of warmth on there. So that is my kind of taking the scene just from very basic. So adding a little bit of warmth in there kind of takes it and adds extra depth into it, okay? Let's use a little bit of colored pencils. Let's see using the colored pencils in combination with the dye-based inks, okay? I don't see why it wouldn't work, you know? It should work just fine, but you know, if there's areas in here that just, you know, we just couldn't get into very easily with, you know, like a finger-sized, a thumbprint size, you know, applicator like this, you know, going in with something much more targeted and specific like this, I'm going into those, you know, like those little ridgy types of things again, like right in here, you know, where it's a little bit darker, getting to the specifics, shadows, underneath the eaves here, you know. But again, I like to do it with my lighter tones, even if I want to get into a darker version of it. I hit it with the lighter ones first, and I build up into the darker values, shadows, or whatever. This, okay. We'll have these fence posts kind of casting a shadow. These ones right here will be casting a shadow. Here's this tree that I, you know, wasn't easy to get to with, you know, a paper towel. Okay. You probably can't even barely, I don't know if you guys can even see what I've done here. This is just a little bit darker than kind of what already existed on here, so. But doing this kind of with a lighter tone where it barely shows, it also gives me a little bit of practice right here. Okay, let's see. Glad you like it, Lisa. Oh, let's splatter paint this one too. I'll just show you how to take these, you know, we're going from, like I said, you know, this is really basic for, you know, a lot of you, but, you know, someone's just kind of looking at this, and I'm just kind of taking it, you know, from kind of I don't see really anything as I do as really advanced, because I teach people how to do it like in the course of like a few hours, you know, how to do all of this stuff. But it's just kind of enhancing things. It's making your shadows darker. It's making your light, you know, your lighter areas lighter, you know, with the, you know, the white pigment ink. It's making things from mostly sharp like this to soft. And again, it's this, you know, it's just doing the same application with this. You know, dye-based inks. Sometimes people think, okay, do you do it in dye-based inks, or you do it in colored pencils, or do you use alcohol inks? A lot of times people are thinking in terms of approaching a piece with a specific medium, and not thinking about in terms of multimedia, right? So you use the multimedia, you know, if something is, you know, more conducive to getting in the details, you know, i.e. a pencil over maybe, you know, a brush marker or something like this. This is like the least detailed right here, right, for big areas, okay? And if you want to get in, you know, some smaller areas, you could do it with this, you know, like a pen like this. This is in StazOn, so I don't want to, you know, smear, you know, that ink right now. But, you know, use the colored pencil for the more detailed areas. So, like, say, underneath these fence posts, you know, I just want to kind of cast the shadow. Hey, Annie, we need to get working on that piece. How are your pieces coming along? Hey, Andy, this is kind of the thing that we are talking about, you know, kind of, you know, making your pieces more realistic, or whatever. And it's just kind of, you know, the extension of these types of things right here. Although you know a lot of it, but, you know, we're going to get much more specific with your workshop. All right, so see that like that? You see that shadow down there? My fences didn't, you know, exactly match up. You know, I didn't take my time to do that too much, but that little area in there's, you know, that's an area that they're going to put a little planter with some flowers in it. Okay, see this right down here? See this little slope right here? So I'm just kind of, you know, putting a little bit of a darker area right behind it like that. So this is like enhancing it a little bit, you know, just to differentiate these spaces a little bit more. And that's, you know, kind of the difference between, I don't know, a very basic kind of application of ink. And I thought the scene looked fine without all this too, you know, but this is just going in and kind of making it a little bit darker in some areas, a little bit more textured. Okay. Which is things you can do, and we could splatter paint this whole thing with some snowfall over the top of that, and that's like, you know, that's like a, you know, that's something we do in like kindergarten. I don't know, like once, you know, you know, they teach you how to do little splatter painting on some kind of project or something like that too, for stars or something like that. But yeah, or let me see. StazOn has markers. Oh no, I stamped out my objects in StazOn, Lisa. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the board here. People ask some questions. Hello, Jeannie. I asked Jeannie about a question on one of her pieces posted on Facebook. I said, "How did you make that look painted?" But then Jeannie does a lot of painting on her pieces, so using the bleed-proof white, you know, that I'd be doing some splatter painting with here. So yeah, multimedia to get, you know, what you're going after. Hello, Julie. Yeah, okay, Annie. Oh, Debbie, let me see. Did Debbie take off? Have a great rest of evening, Debbie. Okay, let's see here. Where am I? Let's do something here. Okay, so here we're, you know, mostly it's blue tones, and you see this little warmth down here. Okay, so here's a little thing you can do too. On a color wheel or whatever, okay, or just in the language of color, there's temperature, warm and cool, right? And then there's dark and light, there's dull and bright, which is intensity, and then there's the hue, you know, blue, red, whatever. Okay, so this is playing around with just different cool tones, okay? I mean, this one right here is mostly cool tones down here. I didn't play around with like a little bit of warmth down in here. I mean, the barn is brown, which is a warm tone. But so, okay, but this one's, I mean, people, if you gave this card to someone, they wouldn't, I don't know if they would say, oh, there's a little bit of warmth in here. Okay, we're just, you know, when we're creating these types of things, if we add something like this down here, it's just to create that extra glow, and I think it hits someone on like on a subconscious level. But okay, so that being said, if you want to play around with a hue, okay, and just extend your color scheme out a little bit, so let's just add a little bit of this pink in here, okay? And let's see, and it's just a really light one, okay? I'm not gonna make, you know, I'm not going for like a pink world in here or anything like that, but this is just a little pinkish tinge, okay? And what this is it's extending out the color range of the piece, okay? Just in a very subtle way though, okay? So I'm adding it here. I'll add a little bit on the rooftop. We can add some into the sky. Apply it where you barely see anything too, okay? Like I can't see anything at all, and I'm sitting right in front of it, okay? But as I just keep doing this, I mean, naturally, there's going to be more of an application of this tinge. Do you see a little bit of violet in there now? I don't know, is that picking up? I'm a little bit out of focus right here, but do you see that little tinge of violet in there? I mean, I did it over here, but I didn't do it over here just so you can see a little bit of difference like this. But see that right there? I mean, you can do more, you know, but I'm just trying to make kind of almost a subconscious kind of application of this hue. And then you're just making it, you know, richer in a very subtle way. But there's that little bit of pink in there now. So, you know, it's just, I don't know if the blue, I wouldn't call the blue kind of anemic looking, but I just think that this little tinge, this warmth in here, this little bit of pink in here, you know what I mean? You can do those little things, or you can just add it to the shadow areas too if you want to. I'm just using this one pink too. I mean, if you want to go with more tones, you can. You know, here's a little bit more of a pale violet right here. Let's hit it in the shadows a little bit. You know, these darker areas. It just kind of makes that blue just a touch more violet. It doesn't read as this color because I'm putting it over blue. You can see what the difference is between that and like this over here, you know. It just changes it a little bit. Here it is from violet right over the top of this blue. That blue, you know, that blue now, or that hue is a little bit different than that one over there. So these little things like this kind of just make your pieces potentially that much richer. And it's not like huge amount richer because I barely added on. I'm just saying it's making it like, you know, a little bit, you know, richer in terms of, you know, the color scheme that we have kind of working on here. I'll go a little bit more down here just to make it slightly more apparent. Maybe some of you like the color violet, you know, that's your favorite color, or someone, you know, if you're giving kind of a piece to someone and their favorite color is purple, you know, but you want to do a winter scene and you want to make it look, you know, mostly blue tones or something like that. This would be really great with a full moon over the top of it, but, you know, you can add in their favorite color in there and it can just be really subtle like that. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go on with some extra little touches in here. Okay. This is your acrylic white 0.7 millimeter paint pen. Okay. And okay, so remember what I was saying. I mean, the difference between kind of just making something from a very basic application of tones, again, which I think looks fine, is just making certain areas look a little bit darker, certain areas look a little bit lighter. This one is kind of lighter in a very detailed manner. So let's say down here on these fence posts, or on the fence rungs, okay, or whatever you call it, you know, I make the top area of them a little bit lighter. And it pulls the fence out from the background a little bit. A little bit more three-dimensional. I'll put some on the posts as well. I don't want to do too much, but let's see. Like that. All right, so I don't know if you can see that little white on top of there, but it's a little bit more three-dimensional. See this little ridge right here of this snow going down this way? So I left it a little bit lighter up here, and there was a little bit of ink on it, or colored pencil or something. I think it was pigment, the dye-based ink. I'm just going in here and just kind of redefining it a little bit more. So it just kind of pulls that ridge out from the background a little bit more by having some of this white on top of it. It looks like snow or something, or it looks like the lighting is kind of hitting that little ridge area a little bit more like that. Maybe you can put some more of this on the road. I'm not going to spend too much time doing that because it's fairly light and you can't really see it too much. Maybe the 3 millimeter white paint pen would look good. See this right in here? So I'm just reiterating areas that I've left light. Oh, here, let me see something. Let's get this rooftop a little bit more. There's a little bit of kind of definition of some snow texture on the top of this roof. Let me go in and kind of enhance that a little bit more. All right. You've heard about that. What is that thing called? It's when it's called lineless coloring or something like that. I forget what it's called. But let's get rid of that defining line a little bit. Just a touch. I still need a little bit of it because it's still light up here and it's not dark. So, but I'm just getting rid of some of that line. Okay, like that. This area right in here, there's some rocks back in here. I'll put a little bit of a snow kind of reflecting off of some of these rocks, maybe. It just puts a little bit of lightness right back into that space. You know, snow in here. All right, let's do... I always have to check if I've cleaned off my splatter painting brush here. Okay, let's go in and hit it with our light again. Okay, I think it's really going to look good. I love it in these kind of wintry, kind of cool tone scenes. Okay, so see this bridge right here? I think it looks fine, again, as is, but let's just do this a little bit like this, a little bit of fog like that. It's that low line fog right in there. Doesn't that look, I don't know, fun? Some mist or something coming off of the stream, or I don't know, there's just some fog back there, okay? And these trees in the distance, okay, let's hit one of them like that, and it makes it look like the light is hitting it back there. It doesn't look like there's kind of a rear illumination like that now. So that tree back there is illuminated. Doesn't look like there's light coming through. You can even do light beams if you want to. Some of these trees right in here, these limbs or leaves, okay, in the illuminated areas are now getting illuminated even more, like that, okay. Let's hit it right down here. All right, and that is it with the pigment ink. I don't know if that took like 2 minutes, did it? It's more like, I thought it took like 1 minute, or it seemed like it. But now you have this real kind of variation of textures. It's soft and illuminated. All black isn't black anymore. That was stamped out in one color of black, right? But now that stays on. The impressions have more character to them now. They're illuminated and whatnot. They're being affected by the lighting within that space right there. So, but let's hit it with a real kind of crisp textural statement with some splatter painting. My previous one wasn't so... I don't know, my previous one looks like more spring or something like that. Okay, it's a late snowfall in the spring. How about that? Rather than like the first snowfall of, you know, winter type of thing. Let's get both of these just to make a point on texture. Okay. All right. Inking up right here, or not inking up. This is paint. And this is the Dr. Martens Bleed Proof White. Now this is available anywhere, okay? But if you don't have something like this and can't find it, and this stuff is cheap too, okay? This bottle, I mean, if you're using it like I don't know, Jeannie, are you still on here? If you're using it like Jeannie, you're going through a bottle a week. But she paints with it. She didn't just do like light splatter painting, okay? But let's splatter, let's go over this right here. Okay, so I'm just using a little bit like this, and then I also kind of wiped a lot of it out, so it's not even like a full tiny tip of it like that, okay? Because I'm just barely using it, okay? And going in like this. I might have to use more. I took off too much. It depends what consistency you have on here. Sometimes it's a little bit thicker, sometimes it's a little... And it's going to be dried and caked, okay? So you just you squirt some water in here and stir it up a little bit. You don't need to stir up the whole bottle. Just stir up a little bit on the top that you're going to be using, okay? All right, so going in. Here, let's see. Now this scene is fairly light in value, so, the white over that doesn't show up, too much, but let me see if you can see it. You can see it in those darker areas like that, okay? Sorry, I'm a little bit blurred out. But, I don't know, it broke up the scene slightly, okay, with a little bit of texture. Well, I don't know if it broke it up, but it added an extra layer of texture, and it is white, so you're adding light back into it. Yeah, I'm really having to give it a big splatter just for it to show. Usually my scenes that I use this on get much darker. Oh, here too. Let me change my exposure on my camera a little bit. All right, that's I've underexposed probably now, but I don't know if you can see that, especially down here or stuff. Anyways, it's splattered over the entire thing. I didn't target in any area. If you're doing stars, then you're just doing it up in the sky. But in this case, you're doing it over everything. And on this one, it's really light, but I don't know. On this one, it could be like pollen in the air. You might subconsciously trigger someone's allergies with this one right here. Okay, but what I do is I go in with this now. If that represents snowfall, okay, this gives a pretty consistent spray pattern on here with some kind of, a light application of white dots, okay? But I do go in here and I just add in larger ones with my acrylic paint pen again, okay? Let me see something here. With your acrylic paint pen, when you're going over pigment ink, make sure that you don't kind of draw it into the tip there, because it can clog up your pen a little bit. I mean, if it does, you just go in, do a little scribble like this and get it flowing again, okay? I said I wasn't going to use the acrylic paint pen on this one, but let's do it. I'll get this ridge like I did on the other one. And a little bit more up here on the fence posts and such to get a little bit more. I'm digging into that the pigment ink here. Okay, here we go. That's enough of that one. Okay, so I've been talking about other things. I haven't really been talking about the Hamilco. There isn't really much to say about this. It seems like it's yet another semi-gloss paper that its performance to me is consistent with just about every other semi-gloss that I've used before. A lot of the semi-gloss papers that I have, the Mohawk's still around, okay, that's brand new, but like the Appleton paper's dull. Appleton Papers is completely out of business, and it has been for years. That's gone. And there was another one that was a satin. I can't even remember the brand. But anyways, can you see these little dots in here? I've kind of enhanced it a little bit more, so it's a little bit more wintry looking here. But I don't know. There's nothing much to say except, which is good. for this. I don't have anything negative to say about this in terms of the characteristics that I've found with past past card stocks. Here, let me put this right here. So whenever that company can find pulp again, if you're looking for a good semi-gloss paper, inexpensive, relatively speaking, I mean, it's I don't know what the count was and how much it was. I mean, I know it says that they're out of it. Thanks again for looking that up, Annie. But I don't know. I don't. I think it was pretty good on all aspects. Okay, it took the dye-based inks. I got a really good blend, and I haven't been blending lately. Okay, I've been doing these cards, so it's not like I'm completely out of practice or anything like that. But I don't know. I'm looking at areas like this down here, and it seemed to work just fine. Do you see a little bit of a tinge of that violet down there? The colored pencils were just, the colored pencil. It's not the ideal paper for colored pencils, okay? But if you're looking for a really good combination, again, of impression quality, the stamp coming in contact with a smooth surface, right? That's going to give us our highest amount of imagery, whatever, transference or whatever you call it. Your smoother papers are going to do that. But the thing about the semi-glosses is that they are matte enough in order to take a decent buildup of your colored pencils. So I probably got to about 4 different colors of colored pencils. Right in here, by the time I got to the black, it wasn't applying very well because it was already a really thick layer of several different colors, greens and browns down there. I did get a little bit of a transfer, of that wax over the wax, but not great. But again, that was like 4 or 5 layers, you know what I mean? But, so if you're not doing some kind of like heavy application of colored pencils where you're going to require something with a little bit more tooth, the semi-gloss is a good way to go for that. I mean, this is, for our purposes, I think by and large, this is a good kind of a surface. And then if you also, let's say you can't get a glossy cardstock in whatever country you're at or whatever, if they're just sold out anywhere, you can go with the semi-gloss if it's available, and you can do your applications on it pretty much the same as you would a glossy cardstock, and then just get an acrylic glossy spray sealant if you want to give it more of that kind of that shiny, glossier kind of postcard look, if it's glossy postcard, not a matte postcard. If you want to do that, then you can just spray seal them and give it that glossy appearance to it. It wouldn't be a bad idea to spray these with the gloss either. But for me, sometimes on this kind of matte, more matte-ish, satiny looking coating, I like spraying my pieces with like a workable fixative or something like that. I usually spray my semi-gloss pieces with a matte spray sealant because I like the characteristics of matte too, Unless I'm out of it, then I'll just use glossy. I'll just use a thin layer of glossy and it doesn't get too glossy. But if you want to give it a real good glossy look, you're probably going to spray it like maybe 3 times or so. Let's see, Lisa asked, do you think you can link your stamps? The stamp links are always going to be under the in the description section of all these videos. I didn't put the links to it right now because I didn't know what stamps I was going to use when I first started this video. Yeah, Jeannie, Jeannie uses Paintbrush. Check out Jeannie's pieces on Facebook. I can't remember, Jeannie, did you, I don't think you've added to that Flickr account, did you? Like some people are just aren't on Facebook, but you know, anyone could see pieces on the Flickr account. I don't know if it was under your name or it was on your husband's name or something like that. But I saw your pieces on Flickr. I just didn't. I don't know if you're updating that or if you update it. Let's see. Well, you do use a lot of that Dr. Martens. My bottle lasts like 10 years, and I use it a pretty decent amount, you know. I don't know. 10 years, I don't know, maybe not that much. Maybe 5 years or something like that. I don't think I don't think I've gone through I don't think I've gone through 2 bottles in the last 10 years, maybe. I combined a bunch of them because I was using them for workshops before, you know, where people can do some splatter paint. I don't know if it was a workshop or it might have been make and takes. You know, everyone was splatter painting in the booth. Maybe it's not a great idea, but for, you know, doing, you know, an application in make and takes, you know. But I don't know, people do glitters and stuff like that, and yet that gets all over everyone. But the splatter painting, I don't know, it's such a dynamic kind of application. Spectrum Noir ink pads, I haven't. Someone was really recommending the, what was that color? I forgot. It was, I think Crystal Fire Creations likes that, right? I don't know. Apparently not, Kay. I don't know how many people are still on, but yeah. Okay, so I don't know. Does anyone have any questions about this? I have... Okay, so this is, again, thank you to the Nancy Stamps. Well, Nancy from the Nancy Stamps channel, but she sent me the Hamilco cover semi-gloss 80 pound, okay? But one of the things that I asked her about was she made this comment on her Amazon review, and she said she can't really tell much difference between the semi-gloss Hamilco and the glossy cover. Okay, now, when I first was looking at them, I thought, I can't see any difference at all. But I can see a little bit. Here, let me bump this back up again here. Okay, there is a slight difference between these ones. This is an 80 pound semi-gloss cover. Okay, and this is a 100 pound glossy. Now this is the most non-glossy glossy paper I have ever seen in my life, okay? Usually glossy is this, right? See that right there? This, to me, looks like a semi-gloss in comparison, right? I mean, there isn't any glossiness to this, to me, at all. You know, but so I was thinking, I was wondering if they sent her the wrong paper, you know. But, I mean, Nancy would know that type of thing, so I didn't ask that, you know. She knows all that type of stuff. More than I do, probably. She probably has a lot, you know. Probably you all have more, like, cardstocks than I do, because I've bought, like, reams of it, and it lasts me forever of certain brands. But there is a slight difference to this one. Now, I'm going to test this one out, too. I have a feeling it's going to be the same type of thing as that. I don't know if this one, you know, that has a slightly glossier look to it, but again, it's much more of a satin look than glossy to me. Maybe it doesn't take as many layers of the colored pencil, you know, because it's, you know, it's going to be slick and sealed more. But we'll give it a try, though. I didn't see the Hamilco glossy 100 pound cover, though, when I was looking on it. I don't know, it must be, though, because that's, you know, she mentioned it, and I don't know, I didn't happen to see it there, unless there's just sold out, you know, or something like that, or out of stock of it when I looked. And this is probably about a month ago or something like that. Well, Jeannie, someone has a Flickr account because your pieces were posted on there. It might have been, like I said, I think it was under maybe your husband's account or something like that, because it occurred to me, I didn't think that you had posted it, but I thought maybe someone else, he did or something like that. It might have been, I don't know, your pieces are up there under some account. But it'd be good if it was both, you know. I don't know, you can ask him about it and see if it's up there, but I don't know. It'd be good if people could see these, see everyone's pieces on here. Hello, Trish. Yeah, these little bottles of Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, they don't come in like a larger bottle as far as I know. But usually these bottles last a long time. You know, calligraphers use these a lot. Calligraphers would go through this a lot, especially those that are doing brush lettering. But a lot of them are doing dip pen, nib, you know, metal nib calligraphy with it on, you know, like dark black paper or something like that. That's what they're mostly used for. So, all right. So anyways, that is the Hamilco first test. I don't need to test this paper again. That paper looks great to me. I don't know. I don't think it's too much different or any different in terms of how it takes media than the Mohawk one that I'm using a lot. The Mohawk Everyday Digital. That doesn't seem to be sold on like Amazon or certain sites. You know, you can order it from Kelly Paper if they have it in stock. There's certain things that aren't on the Kelly Paper website. It's called Kelly Spicers now, or Spicers Kelly Spicers, I think. But they just don't have certain things on there. But anyone can call into any one of their stores and ask them about it, and then they do mail order. Okay, so you can ask about that too. So, yeah. But yes, hello Trish. We're just wrapping it up right here. So yeah, I don't know. It's another good source for us, I think. You know, an option. Having paper options these days was never so important. A lot of you are set up though, you know. But as far as like a real basic style of cardstock, you know, matte cardstock, you know, buying in ream quantities is a good idea, you know, because it's one of those things that we're probably going to be using a decent amount of. If you like glossy cardstocks, or in this case, a semi-card, you know, glossy. The Hamilco, I don't think it was being sold in ream amounts. I think it was like in packs of 50 or 100 or something like that. I don't remember. But it was reasonably inexpensive for the price per sheet. Something like this, you know, if you're going through a decent amount, I wouldn't buy like a repackaged type in quantities of like 10 or something like that, because they're just the price per sheet is just, the margins are just, you know, they're just too high of a price for that. So I would go for, you know, a good amount of it, because it'd be really inexpensive again. And if it's going to be something that you're going to be using over time. And like I said, the semi-glosses to me are a little bit, oh, I don't want to offend anyone here, but I think they're a little bit more, I think they retain your liquid media a little bit more, because they stay more surface oriented than a matte that's going to be absorbing more of it. So if you want more of a higher potential for richer saturations of wet media, okay, it's going to be a more coated paper. But again, if you go way coated to the glossy, that's the highest degree of saturation. That's what they use for movie posters and attention getting, like book covers and everything like that. You can't use the softer mediums like colored pencils like we used on here. So it's a good kind of trade-off with those in-between types of media surface applications. Okay, so anyways, I'm talking too long here. Thanks for joining in. If you have any questions, drop me a note. And have a good rest of evening. If I didn't answer someone's question, and if someone didn't answer you too, I don't know, send me an email or whatnot, and I'll definitely get back with you. And if anyone has any questions about any types of media compatibilities, or if you're ever running into any kind of difficulties with anything, surfaces, media combinations, etc. Don't just keep working and saying, oh my God, I tried and tried and tried to, spend hours on it. Just take a photograph and send me an attachment. And I'll be able to tell you like instantly. Most things, if someone asks me about, oxides or something like that I haven't used before, I'm not going to be able to answer that. But most types of things, I've seen most things before in terms of surfaces and stuff like that. So, I'll be able to get you on track just, right away, hopefully. Like, don't use that, use this one. Or in addition to using those colors, just throw another, lighter tone right over the top of it and it'll get nice and rich, that type of thing. Those types of tips are easy to tee. Just from me, looking at the, a work in progress, usually. A lot of times people think, this didn't come out at all or something like that. Well, it's, because you didn't add in like 2 more tones or something like that. And it's just really easy to do. Okay, so thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of evening. And thanks so much for joining in on the live stream.